All right, you guys, I just wanted to walk you through one of these problems, and then after you watch this video, you can practice it on your study guide, and then it will also be on your quiz. So just make sure you know how to set these up. So, and again, you will have to pause it a lot because I already have like the questions pre-written out, just so it saved me a little bit of time. So just keep on pausing it when you need to write something. So Jenny rents a bike while visiting Chicago. She pays $7 per hour to rent the bike, and she also pays an $8 flat fee to rent a baby seat. The first thing that we want to do is write in the equation for y equals mx plus b to represent this situation. So pretty much what I need to know, remember that we are only plugging in M and B in this case. So we just really got to know what M and B is. And hopefully you go straight over here and you're like, well, it has to be a 7 and an 8. But you have to know which one is going where. So whenever you're multiplying this M by the X, that means it's a repeated charge. So if she rents the bike for 1 hour, she's paying so much. If she rents the bike for 2 hours, then she's paying so much. So you are really looking for this word to determine what your slope is going to be. So whenever you see per, that's a repeated charge. So your equation for this one should be y equals 7x plus 8. And that 8 is just that one-time flat fee, so it doesn't get multiplied over and over and over again. All right. So using this equation, how much will it cost after 2 hours? So now you kind of have to ask yourself, is 2 hours going to represent the cost? Or I'm sorry, is it going to represent the X or the Y? Which one is representing hours and which one is representing cost? So over here, whenever it says $7 per hour, that means whatever is getting multiplied by the 7, that's what the X is representing. So your X is going to be hours. And then obviously your Y should just be your total cost. So she's renting for so many hours, she's paying an $8 flat fee. So this guy is going to be your total cost. So when it does say after 2 hours, you have to know that you're just plugging it in for X. So Y is going to be 7 times 2 and then plus 8. So Y equals 14 plus 8, and that is going to be 22. And then I would just write this as an ordered pair because that's going to come in handy. So when I plugged in 2 for X after 2 hours, she is paying $22 to rent the bike. Same thing over here. How much will it cost after 8 hours? So we're going to do the same exact thing, but now we're plugging in 8 for X. And 7 times 8 is 56 plus 8. 56 plus 8 is 64. So again, I'm going to write it down as a point because that's just going to help me. So after 8 hours, when X was 8, she paid $64, or you got 64 out for Y. Okay, so then step number 4, it says to graph these 2 points and the y-intercept. So notice I have my blank page over here, my blank graph. I only need the first quadrant because we're not going to have negative anything. We're not going to have negative hours and we're not going to have negative cost over here. So the first thing that you want to do is label your axes. So I know that my x-axis is representing hours. And I know my y-axis is representing cost, and I'm just going to put a $sign in the middle there. So now what you have to do when you are doing your study guide and when you're doing your quiz, you have to make sure that you are, if I'm going to plot these 2 points, you have to make sure that I have enough space to actually plot those points. So what is going to be the scale for my x and my y? So obviously for my x's, I have to at least be able to get through 8. My next question is going to be use the graph to predict after 10 hours. So I want to make sure I'm getting at least through 0 through 10 on my x-axis. So for these, I can just count by ones. Okay, so I want to try to get through at least 10 hours. And then for cost, After 8 hours, it's 64. This is our maximum cost that we have so far. So we need to go my minimum cost, and again, my y-intercept, hopefully you guys remember that. It's always going to be your b. So my y-intercept is 0, 8. So I have to go from $8 to $64. Sometimes what helps is just counting how many lines you have and just making sure you're at least covering this range. And again, if we want to go to 10, maybe have just like a little extra space going up here. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So let's just say like maybe if I count by tens, that way I'll at least get up to 100. Maybe that will see like at least I'll have space for the 64 and at least I'll have space for whatever 10 is. So I'm going to label my y-axis by tens. And remember, this is tens of dollars that she's paying. And if you wanted to, you can go up by 8 and just go up by 8s like that. If you wanted to, you can go up by 5s if you have enough room. So it really doesn't matter what your scale is, just as long as you can fit everything on there. Okay, so when we go to plot these points, now my first point that I'm plotting is my y-intercept. So that is going to be 0, 8. So I am on the y-axis, just right below 10 over here. And then my next point is 222. So I'm going to go to 222. That's about right there. And then I have 8 and 64. So I got to go all the way over here to 8 and then up to 64, which is probably right about there. And it should, if you, it doesn't have to be like perfect. I have no idea if that's really 64, but you should be seeing if it makes like a straight line. It should be making about a straight line. So always just double check for that too. And then I just want to just draw my line through these points. And again, I want it to at least hit 10 over here. So I did just get that. Okay. So this is your line. So you do have to make sure you are on your study guide and on your quiz. You have to make sure that you're labeling these and you're labeling these. Okay. So I need to see that you actually know how to do that. Okay. So that's part number 4. I'm going to go down over here. So part number 5, I'm going to have to keep on going back and forth, is use the graph to predict how much it will cost after 10 hours. So when I say use the graph, I am saying I don't want your exact answer yet. So I'm going to go to this graph. After 10 hours, I'm pretty much just going to follow this up over here. I want to estimate this point over here. So it seems like it's crossing right underneath my $80, so maybe $79 or $78. Again, your guess doesn't have to be exact. It just has to be close. So I'm going to guess $79. That's my guess. Then step number 6 says, how much will it actually cost after $10? So, or I'm sorry, 10 hours. So again, we're given hours over here. So that is an X value. And we go back and plugging it into our equation like we were before. So we have y equals 7 times 10 and then plus 8. So y equals 70 plus 8. And y actually does equal 78. So $78. So after 10 hours, it costs $78. So I guess 79 because it crossed right below. But again, I was in between 78 and 79. So your guess should be close. It usually is not going to be exact until after you plug it in. Okay. This one, I should have left myself more space for this one, but that's okay. Now, this one is asking, how many hours did she rent the bike if she paid $106? So what you have to be really telling yourself is this is now a Y value. So you have to tell yourself that this is a Y value now. So now we're going to plug it in for Y. So 106. And we're solving for how many hours over here. So now we're solving for hours equals 7x plus 8. So we're going to subtract the 8 over, we get 98 equals 7x. And then once we divide by 7, we do get 14. So our answer should be, after how many hours did she rent the bike? If she's paying $106, she rented the bike for 14 hours. So again, this is just like plugging it in. So like those first few examples that you did on your study guide where it gave you an X and you're solving for Y, or it gave you a Y and solving for X, it's the same exact thing. It's the same exact math. It's just now you are just determining what it actually means in terms of this problem. Okay, then last two questions over here. What is the y-intercept and what does it represent? So remember, your y-intercept is always 0b. So in this case, in terms of this problem, our b is $8. Okay, there's a couple of different ways that you can explain this. You can say that that $8 was your flat fee, but usually how I explain this is I do relate it to time. So this is like your, if you look at it as XY, after 0 hours, she paid $8, and then you can just put as a flat fee or as a one-time fee or something like that. So I just need to have you relate this point in terms of the problem. So after 0 hours, she paid $8 as a flat fee, or she just needed to pay $8 just in order to rent the bike, or whatever you want to say. So as long as it kind of just makes sense in terms of this problem, that's fine. Okay, and then what does your slope represent? So what is your slope and what does it represent? So hopefully you guys know that my slope is 7, so I'm just going to put m equals 7. And a lot of the times we represent our slope when I ask you like what it means. I'm kind of asking you like what ratio does it mean? What does it mean in terms of this problem? So if you want to turn it into like 7/1, because again, a ratio is a fraction, and then you can describe what this fraction actually represents. Okay, and again, it's always your change in y over your change in your x. It's your y's per your x's. So you just pretty much have to look at your graph and just kind of say what your graph is. So this is cost per hour. So your numerator is your y, and your y represents cost. Your numerator is your hours, and that, or is your x, and that represents your hours. So really, it costs, it costs $7 per hour to rent the bike. And I'm running out of space over here, but you know what I mean. So that's kind of what I want you guys to have for your slope. I want something per something. That's where like your points are going to come in. So in this particular case, it costs $7 every hour she rides the bike. So her cost keeps on increasing by $7 every hour. Okay, and that's about it. If you have any questions over these, I can definitely answer them in the next class period because we will practice this again. Good luck on your study guide.